Good morning, Manchester, and welcome to Award 13. And my special guests today are Mike Lopez, who we all know is a long-serving alderman at large. He was the past commander of the Veterans Council of Manchester. And we have Bill Roy of the Sweeney. Both Mike and Bill are Sweeney Post number 2, the American Legion, which I recently joined. And Bill, you're the alternate national executive committeeman for the state of New Hampshire, which is quite a title. And we're going to talk about Veterans Day, and then we're going to talk about issues like the Veterans Administration and issues of interest of veterans. I'd just like to, as my viewers know, I was running for state rep in Ward 10. Not Ward 13, but Ward 10. And I came in dead last, although not by much, but still dead last. And but I tell you, Mike, the thing that hurt most was Carol Shea Porter losing. John, could we see the pictures of Carol? That's there you are, Mike. You could look. We're not supposed to look over there. There's me. There's Kathy Staub, Carol, you, and Paul Martineau. And that was Carol. Of all politicians I've ever, here you are again, and she came to the polls at Ward 10. I got my picture taken with her. But of all the politicians I've ever met, and I'm a journalist, my first interview was Jerry Brown back in 1980 when he's running for president. Wow. There we are at the polls. And she is the most normal person I've ever met that's a politician. And I have to say, I'm very sad that she lost. She only lost by less than 7,000 votes out of 200,000. And the work she's done for veterans is just remarkable. And Abby Sickles, who's at the office and handles veterans issues, she was just amazing. Because my healthcare provider is the VA, the Veterans Hospital in Manchester. And I can't tell you how much Abby has helped veterans up there. And I could tell you stories, but we only have a half hour, right. And it would take an hour to tell all the stories of the people she helped. I'll just say one thing about Carol. She was an army wife. You know, her Gene, her husband, Gene, was a Vietnam era veteran. And what she told me and what people said, the first thing she asked about in the day, when she called in the office in the day, about veterans. Yep. And she was just an amazing person. I feel sadder than myself losing that she's not going to be with us after January 3rd.
Well, unfortunately, the 2% negative advertising they do in marketing and politicians holds true. So
yeah.
So what are you going to do? She's a good person, and I'm sure she'll find her way in life too.
Oh yeah, great friend of veterans. Well, Mike, you. Don't every year you organize the Veterans Day festivities in Manchester, don't you?
Well, I did for 20 years. I more consult with the people that are running the Manchester Veterans Council, which I'm a trustee on the board. And we have a lot of young people that are stepping forward to take over, and I have a lot of input into it, but I give credit to the commander of Post 79, who's the adjutant of the Manchester Veterans Council, who put the program together, and others that help with the parade. So we're starting to get a lot of younger vets involved, yes. Which is good, and that's what I strive for, to try to get the younger vets involved, because some of us are getting a little older than.
A little long in the tooth.
Right. So I credit this with the adjutant and the commander of the Manchester Veterans Council, Dan Beliveau, and others that are on the council for putting the program together this year.
John, could we see that picture, the newspaper clipping from 1930? That is my grandfather, Claude J. Hopwood Sr. Now, when I was thinking of running in Ward 10 because of the French-Canadian population, and I'm part French-Canadian, I was thinking of running as John Claude. But because I'm John C.
Well, that would have been a good catchy thing, right?
I'm John C. Hopwood as a professional writer. But somebody has said maybe you should be John Cashin Hopwood. That might help you a little more in Ward 10.
Yeah, Ward 10. That's for
But
sure.
that was my grandfather, and he was one of the veterans that came back from World War I who created the American Legion. He was the commandant of the Londonderry post because he's the family, the Hopwood Whittemore families from Litchfield. You know, we go back to like 1720 when George II, we were from Massachusetts, gave us Litchfield and held on to it for a long time, but the Great Depression came.
Maybe you better get rid of that 13, Ward 13. Or is that Ward 14?
Ward 14.
Used to be 14 wards.
Oh, yeah. 13 was always my lucky number, though.
Well, I don't know about that.
After Tuesday, I'm not so sure anymore. But the Legion was a very important thing to my grandfather, and it was very important to my father. And my brother's in the Legion, and my father always wanted me to join the Legion, but I fell into that donut hole. Remember, we were looking. One thing about Mike, can I tell a personal story? I remember we were at a Democratic dinner, and Mike was right opposite me. And I was saying to my good friend Gary Hamer, who I grew up with, we were in kindergarten, through best man at his wedding, and godfather to his son. I says, geez, I wonder if Mike Lopez is going to run for, state rep. And all of a sudden, Gary says, there's Mike Lopez. But I first met you, Mike, and you can't remember, like 1973 or 74, when you were a recruiter here in Manchester, and I was 13 or 14 years old. You enlisted my sister Debbie into the WACS, the Women's Auxiliary Corps. And when Debbie got pregnant, you couldn't be even into the 80s with a baby. You had to get out of the army.
You had to get out, yeah.
And as she worked for you as a recruiter here in Manchester, and her husband, Peter Osgood.
Right.
And when we were doing the runs with Carol, one thing, she didn't know that you were a recruiter. How many people did you recruit?
I recruited 137 people in the Manchester area to go into the service, and I've kept track over a number of people in a number of years. There's about 20 of them working in the post office today. Yep. Well, some are retired too. So, and 2 are FBI agents, and the rest got good jobs. So,
I was Army veteran. You were Army. What was your MOS?
I was
military occupation specialist.
Occupational specialist. When I was growing up, I had to get some discipline, so I went in the infantry right away. 4 years.
I knew you were 11 Bravo.
Yeah, 11 Bravo.
He was
in
an
the
11
infantry.
Bravo.
But after that, I went into photography, and then my last 7 years, I was an Army recruiter here in Manchester. I had 9 different stations in New England.
Right, because I remember there was a Berlin station and the different stations. Bill, what was your MOS?
No MOS. I was in the Navy.
You were in the Navy.
Yeah, 4 years in the Navy.
My father was Navy, World War II, DAV. He wanted me to be in the Navy. No, he wanted me to be in the Navy and the Marine Corps, but I was colorblind. I wanted to be a Marine when I was a kid, but you have to have perfect color vision to be a Marine because everybody in the Corps has to be a rifleman. And I remember taking the test with a recruiter. My father lived in Atlanta. In Decatur, Georgia, I scored the highest on the ASVAB. They were so thrilled to get me. But there was the Navy chief. Remember what Navy chiefs used to look like?
They still
do. Oh, yeah, they still do.
What they call a Navy chest, this big chest. And we went through the color book, After 3 pages, he says, he's so disgusted. We don't have to go any further. So that was the end of my dream to be a Marine. But that's why I became military intelligence in the Army, because that's practically all you can be. Because you have to be, as a rifleman, you have to have perfect color vision so you know who you're shooting. It's true. Camouflage and that. What did you do in the, what did you have a right arm rate or a left arm rate?
Ours was on the left arm. All our rates were on the left arm. I was
in the World War II, there was, because my father always taught the distinction between whether you were a right arm rate or a left arm rate.
I came out as an E5.
Yeah.
I served on tankers the whole time, refueling ships and transferring supplies. It was very interesting. It was a long, hard work. It was, but I do it over again. It was a lot of fun, a lot of experiences.
How long were you in the Navy?
4 years.
4 years. I was 4.
The moment I got out of boot camp, I never saw shore duty. I was on ships the whole time, the way I wanted it.
Yeah, I couldn't swim, so I joined the Army. But Mike, tell us about the Veterans Day.
Well, Veterans Day is this Tuesday, and November the 11th. And one thing I'm going to clear up with a lot of people on Veterans Day is for the living, the people who came home. And a lot of people get mixed up between Veterans Day and Memorial Day.
Right.
And so this is for the living. Tuesday, November the 11th, the parade will step off at 10:30 in the morning and reach City Hall by 11 for the 11th day, 11th hour when we were supposed to end all wars.
The war to end. My grandfather was in the war to end all wars.
Right. And so, but anyways, taps will be played at City Hall. And then after the taps, we go to Veterans Memorial Park and have a 15 to 20 minute ceremony there. We have the 3 high school bands will be in there in the parade, and many scouts and other veterans groups. We probably would have more, but the Veterans Cemetery in Bosquen is having a ceremony at the same time. So a lot of veterans go up there with their families. So all in all, it'd probably be from 10:30 to about 12:30, and then we'll be completed. Like I said, Sam Caldwell, who's the adjutant, put the program together, and I think it's going to be very, very nice. The Memorial High School will play taps at Veterans Park, and the national anthem by Memorial High School. So, and there's a few speakers. One of the speakers is going to be Veterans Council founder Michael Salter, and then there'll be a presentation of the Anthony Tony Caron Award, which is given to a veteran that the Manchester Veterans Council decides that has given a lot to the veterans. And this year we've selected an individual who just passed away, who was our commander of Sweeney Post. So that award be given to him. But Post 79, Jutras Post, the VFW, DAV 18, that used to meet at the
DAV means Disabled American Veterans.
Right.
My father was DAV from World War II.
They used to meet at the Veterans Hospital, and now they meet at Sweeney Post. And the VFW closed its doors and sold the building.
Right.
And so the VFW will be, they meet at Sweeney Post also, and they'll be joining us for the Veterans Day Parade. So, and then the firing of the volleys at the park will be Sweeney Post. Trying to get a lot of younger veterans involved in the American Legion to become honor guard people or flag bearers or riflemen for playing a salute, because I think might have read an article where a union leader had that they're cutting down on funds, but we're pressing on to try to get those funds back for servicemen that died, that they get the National Guard to come in and present the flag to the next of kin. So we're working on that, and there's so many things to work on, and of course now we just have to wait for the new Congress to get on their feet, I guess, and we'll go from there. If we get everybody to pass before, that's a good thing, you know.
Yes. One of the things, my father being DAV, I went to many a veterans hospital with him. And my stepmother was a General Motors executive. Now, in those big corporations like the military, like with officers, in fact, a lot of ex-officers were executives at General Motors, and you moved every 3 years. So I've been to many, many different VA hospitals. I remember all the World War II vets. There's not many left now. And it was strange to see that now the Vietnam vets, over like 20 years are now the older vets. There's an occasional Korean vet, but now the young vets that are coming back, the young vets now at the Veterans Hospital.
Well, like we at Sweeney Post, we used to have 564 World War II veterans down.
Right.
We're down to about 159, somewhere around there, of World War II veterans left. So, and now we got the Vietnam era that's over 500 Vietnam veterans that are taking the lead, and we'll be looking for the Iraq veterans and Afghanistan veterans to come in and take part in a great cause of helping veterans, And I'm going to let Bill talk a little bit more about, about the American Legion, because a lot of people have the wrong impression of the American Legion, and we do a lot for veterans, and I'm glad and proud to be a member for over 40 years.
Well, I'm glad that you have the Sons of the American Legion, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to join the Legion Post.
That's true. You came in at the wrong time or something.
Right. It was I missed it like 3 months on one side and 9 months on the other.
Right.
But, Bill, why don't you tell us about the American Legion, and you can even bring up the Sons of the American Legion.
Sure. It was founded in 1919 by a group of people that were in World War I, and they were waiting to come home. They didn't have the planes like we did. They had to wait several months. And Theodore Roosevelt Jr. is considered the father of the American Legion, so they decided, let's have a meeting in Paris, France. So actually, our first pulses on a foreign territory was in Paris.
Paris. My grandfather stayed for a year or so in the occupied forces in Paris, and I don't know why he was in Paris. And what was it, the Saar in Germany?
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't want to come home. But his mother said, you know, the army was not a real career for a Whittemore, and so he came back to Litchfield. But Paris, right?
So they wanted to get together. They had the Grand Old Army, the Republic, before that, and that was mostly for officers. But with Theodore Roosevelt and Francis Dollier and all these forefathers of our organization says, we want to get everybody involved, and when we come back, we want to push for veterans' rights, to get the care that they deserve. And they had a caucus in St. Louis, and then they had in July. And then November of that year, they had the first convention. So they really started running right away with it.
Now, I've read when the veterans came back, you know, back then they did not have any idea of PTSD. In fact, if you had shell shock then, they might, particularly if you were in the British Army, they'd just put you against the wall and shoot you.
Wow.
But a lot of people came back with wounds and there were no veterans hospitals then. There was a National Health Service type of hospital they put many veterans in. But that was mostly for handling tuberculosis victims. And there was really no health care services for veterans after World War I. And they didn't recognize PTSD. And you would just, a lot of them were just thrown back in the community. So that must have been a major factor in the Legion. And when did the Veterans Administration, which used to be, what was it called? What was the Veterans Administration? 1930? The Legion was very instrumental in creating the Veterans Administration, was it not? And veterans hospitals.
That's correct. And they're the ones that got the ball rolling on that. And the Veterans Benefits Association, they also got pensions for the World War I veterans. In fact, they had well, I'm not saying a riot in Washington D.C. that General
the
MacArthur,
bonus march.
the bonus march, because they
1932.
never received their pensions, and we were pushing that for the whole time. And actually, General MacArthur broke that up with some violence. It was people were
and
killed.
Eisenhower was his Major
okay.
Eisenhower was his adjutant, and they didn't get it to 1945 because once again, my grandfather, being in the Legion, it took a long time to get that bonus.
And actually, that segues very well because they talk about stimulus programs under Bush and Obama. They really didn't work that well. The number one stimulus program ever in the history of this country was the GI Bill.
Oh, it's amazing.
And that was all done by the American Legion. Not one of the other organizations came on board. We had to do it alone. In fact, Morris K. Devine was instrumental in that. Frank Knox, who was our first...
Frank Knox from New Hampshire.
Right, from
Yes,
Manchester.
absolutely.
He was our first department commander. The interesting story is when we put in for our charters, Laconia and Manchester put in it on the same day. So we caucused, and we says, well, how are we going to do this? Well, Manchester says, well, you give us the first department commander, which is the state commander,
Right.
and you can have two, and you can have one, and we'll do two, and that's how that happened. So,
Is that why it's Sweeney Post number 2?
That's correct.
Because I always wondered if there was a Sweeney Post number 1. Because I think Sweeney, his memorial's over in the West Side, isn't it? Wasn't he from the West
Yeah,
Side?
yeah. Henry J. Sweeney Post.
From Ward 10.
He was the
Ward
first.
10.
Which
Ward
you're
10.
a Ward 10.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we go there. We go around all the different parks and at Sweeney Park on Memorial Day.
Right.
So we go around and give a 21 gun salute to about 26 squares in the city, and it's pretty good.
He was the first Manchester resident killed in World War I. That's
Right.
why
Oh,
a post
okay.
is named
Right.
after him.
That's why.
I know. And down where I don't know which ward it is, Ward 11, where the St. Mary's Bank is. There was he died at Pearl Harbor. There's a veteran.
Rasmus?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was Rasmus.
So, I thought back to Veterans Day, just a little bit. I know the program is coming to a winding up here, and I just want to make sure.
Well, if you'd like, we could do another half hour, if
Well,
John will allow us.
Yeah, but on Veterans Day, particularly coming this Tuesday, like I said, Veterans Day is for the living, those that came back, and we remember all the comrades that we lost on Memorial Day and all throughout the year. But we want to make sure that people know it's for the living. So if you see a veteran, just thank them. But another important thing about watching a parade going down Elm Street is people sitting on the curb, having a good time. Stand up when the American flag comes by.
Of course.
And put your hand over your heart. We try to teach all that when we go to schools and show people how to fold the flag, how to display the American flag. You got to respect that flag. It's our flag. A lot of people died for it.
Yes.
And so, therefore, pay the respect by either standing up, putting your hands over your heart, saluting it. And you'll see some old veterans on Elm Street that do that today. They'll be out there.
Yes.
They can't march anymore. And I've seen people get out of their wheelchair and stand up. So people do remember. But Veterans Day, November the 11th, going to have a lot of veterans in the parade, the Memorial High School bands.
Usually you have some, is there going to be the Jeep this year?
Yeah, there'll be
The 1942 Jeep.
they'll have some World War II vehicles in there, and also they'll have some Humvee, good Humvee this year that they've been using. But anybody's welcome in the parade. If you haven't been in the program, you're naturally going to 3rd Division. Because you didn't get your request in time. So.
Right.
But it will be hopefully a nice day, and we don't get any snow.
Yes.
So
I've got I would like to add one thing. New Hampshire was critical in the move of bringing Veterans Day back to November 11th.
Oh,
Remember,
absolutely.
it was a Monday holiday. And I think William Loeb, we might disagree with him about many things I did as a kid, but he was very adamant about that Veterans Day should be on Veterans Day. And the New Hampshire congressional delegation at Norris Cotton and them really pushed for that.
Yeah, and that's true. And I found out the other day that Trinity's having high school on Veterans Day, and they're taking off Monday. So I couldn't figure that out. So I have a couple guys that teach up there, and they were going to give me an answer why. Now, if they're having a ceremony up there on Veterans Day, that's appropriate. But I think it'd probably be the only school in session.
Right.
So, but at the park. West High NJROTC will do the Pledge of Allegiance, invocation by Jim Carvis, and Dan Belleville will give a few words, and of course Mayor Ted Gassis will be marching down Elm Street with us, and also at the park, so he'll be the guest speaker for the city.
And we only have 2 minutes left in this segment. You will come back for another half hour, right? We can talk about veterans issues. When does it start? The parade starts off at 10:30 a.m.
10:30 a.m. in
Webster and Elm Street.
Yeah, you have to step up by 10:35 in order to be at City Hall with the pace. So at 11 o'clock, you want everybody at City Hall so that they can play taps for the 11th hour, 11th day, 11th month. So we usually make it, so there won't be any lingering up there. They got to get off by 10:30.
That military discipline you're famous
Absolutely.
for.
They got to move. So, and we'll have a good time. We'll get the fire trucks down and let the people know we're coming, because they can. During Veterans Day, they can blow their sirens and everything else, but on Memorial Day we don't allow it. So.
Well, it used to be they tolled the bells at that hour in all the churches.
Well, remember the siren?
Yes.
We used to have.
We used to have the air raid sign in case the Soviet Union.
Now we use a
decided
police
to.
cruiser.
Well, it's that time again. We have to sign off for Ward 13 for this week, but come back next week and we'll have Bill and Mike. We'll be discussing veterans issues. Night.